Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson. Welcome to the Cinefiles. Today we're going to be continuing our conversation from last week of the Masters of Horror Season 1, Part 2. And we're going to be discussing 3 films or shows from the Masters of Horror, which will be John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns, Dario Argento's Jennifer, and Larry Cohen's The Pickup. And let me introduce our panel before we begin. To my left, Eric Cohen. To his left, Jeff Gallasaw. And to his left, Michael Foltz.
We're kind of the Masters of Horror.
Well, hey, I guess you could say I'm a master of horror.
Master of Horror reviews.
Well, I'll take that, because you know me, I love horror. And in fact, we're going to be discussing 2 of my favorite directors, actually my 2 favorite directors today on this show. And it's going to be hard to discuss this because I have some mixed opinions about their work. And my 2 favorite directors, respectively, are Dario Argento, and John Carpenter. And this is their long-awaited return to work. In fact, we'll start off with Cigarette Burns, which is John Carpenter's first work since Ghost of Mars, if I'm not mistaken, which was quite a while ago, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. He hasn't directed a theatrical film in quite a while.
Was Vampires before?
Vampires was before Ghost of Mars.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been away from the Hollywood establishment.
He's basically been sitting on his butt and accepting money for being an executive producer for them remaking all his other films.
Yeah, they remade the Fog and
Assault on Precinct 13.
And unfortunately, sorry, don't say it, Escape from New York with Gerald Butler, which...
Gerard, and it might not get made.
Let's hope not, because the original's perfect. Don't, and it's already been remade, of course, as Escape from L.A. But anyway, let's get into this one. Cigarette Burns was written by Drew McWeeny, which, oh boy, co-written, and who is also known as Moriarty on Ain't It Cool News. And if you ask me, he should actually keep his name as Moriarty, because I would change my name if it was McWeeny. But this is a film, of course, that also, believe it or not, also has a lot of Argento references in it, ironically, and where it's to the point where it's a fan of a fan writing work and putting in these references, which are becoming very distracting, I think. You know, of course, like the movie they're showing is Profondo Rosso, which everyone knows is Dario Argento's Deep Red, and, you know, all the film jargon and all the little hints. But why don't you, Eric, give us a little rundown of the story?
This guy, he runs a sort of an art house movie theater. He's also sort of makes his money finding rare films for collectors, and some guy approaches him and says, there's this famous movie, there's a legend, we don't even know if it really exists, but I think it does, and it was only shown once, and the people who went to this one showing went insane after seeing it. It's got to be out there somewhere, and basically it's very similar to Ring.
And it's also very similar to a movie that John Carpenter earlier directed called In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, actually, it is similar to that. It's I don't know what to say about this one. It's got a very interesting idea behind it. You know, it may not be terribly original, but it is interesting. It's just a problem with stories like this. It's like, you know, the story is that eventually once they get to the end of the story, you know, when all is revealed, it's really hard to come up with something that can fulfill the promise of whatever this horrible thing is.
That was my problem.
And they didn't quite get there. You know, there are good things in the story. There are things about that I did like. You know, and I liked how it had a very sort of, there were moments of it that were very naturalistic instead of going like the whole abstract kind of, you know, out there route. But yeah, it was kind of you know, I liked it. I wasn't crazy about it. I liked the idea of it more than I actually liked the execution.
My problem with this one Argento, as everyone, I mean, I'm sorry, not Argento, but Carpenter, as you know, is a very stylistic director. And his style is very, very distinct in his films. I looked at this film and I really didn't feel it was a Carpenter film at all. It didn't have any of his visual trademarks. Also, like you said, the idea, like you said, it's building, like you think something really big's going to happen.
Well, the problem with the story is that they
happens.
revealed that
well, something happened,
but just nothing really happens.
The thing that one of the big problems is with this. It's a script. It's a story. They reveal too early the star of this movie he's got to find. Mm-hmm. And you know, they showed that you shouldn't find that out so early in a story. That's something that you should find out later on. So you should have this building dread as things get more and more fucked up as you get closer and closer to the end. You know, there's like things like that aren't very well thought out in terms of building tension. You know,
And also, I will say one thing I did like. I love seeing Udo Kier as always. Everybody I know, he's the person who actually hires Norman Reedus, I believe, to find the print. I thought he gave a very good performance, but unfortunately, like you said, it's just that payoff. I do like the flashbacks with the girlfriend and them being junkies. Actually, I thought that was an interesting addition to the characterization of those people. But like I said, the payoff is what completely ruined it for me. And another thing it's missing that great John Carpenter score, which is not in the movie. Unfortunately, his son does it.
No long shot with the shadows.
No. And like even John Carpenter said that he hates shooting in a TV medium. Even though it's 1:8:5, he still does, he said everything he shoots should be in 2:3:5. He said he just is not comfortable with the 1:3:3 ratio. And it's obvious in this. And also,
yeah, but he's done TV before, and he shot in that format before. Matter of fact, he did his Elvis movie with Kurt Russell in that. He also did that horror series for, I think it was Showtime way back when.
Well, I mean, that's when he commented on that.
Body bags.
Well, he's even commented on that in the past. So he said it's harder for him to come up with his compositions and his ideas in the 1:3:3, which is the TV format ratio. Like I said, stylistically, it really doesn't feel like a Carpenter film. What about you? Did you feel that, Jeff?
Well, I thought it had interesting elements, but one of the elements that I didn't like is the one that you liked. I didn't like the whole storyline with him and his ex-girlfriend, being junkies. I just felt like I'd rather just keep going with the story instead of his past life.
I agree with him. I thought it was a little invasive, actually.
Exactly.
Was it there so that her father can show up at the end? You know what I mean? It didn't
Well,
seem...
I thought it was there because it showed that he was desperate for money and he was a desperate
but you
character.
could still, I mean, if you're offering someone enough money and he's a film fan and he's heard of this like legendary film and oh my God, you mean this thing might actually exist and you've chosen me to find it? That's enough motivation right there.
Exactly.
You know what the weakest part of the movie for me too was the scene where he actually goes to Europe and he meets these and then all of a sudden becomes a hostile ripoff. You know the scene that I'm talking about?
Yeah, the thing is that I didn't mind that. I kind of like that odd little moment. I mean, again, I know what you're saying, and I think we're all in agreement because we seem to like different things and hate different things about it. It's a really good idea. It's interesting. It's kind of plotted wrong. I guess is the best way.
What about you, Mike? You're kind of silent on this one. You sound like you have not much to say about this.
No, I do. I was just, just trying to give everybody their turn.
There wasn't enough nudity in it.
Actually, there was the nudity, the bloody
the girlfriend. She was naked, but I liked the way the film built. Towards the end, but I agree with Eric that once you get to the end, it's really not much of a payoff. And I hate to spoil it for people out there, but the star it's like a snuff film. This film that's supposed to be, I think the big disappointment for me, and you're right, you don't get any of the John Carpenter style flourishes that you're used to as a Carpenter fan. But it dealt with a very dark and disturbing story with heavy accounts of mysticism within the film and the idea of that this film is so terrible that you can only see it once and everybody associated with the film either killed themselves or got killed or somehow. And I love that urban legend of something so deep and dark, which is very Ring-like. But yeah, the star of this snuff film is an angel. They had somehow captured an angel and tortured this angel and ripped off its wings. But the biggest disappointment I have for it is when you see this film or see a chunk of it, you're like, that was it? You think, oh, the kids that saw the tunnel in the Wonkatania in the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, that was scarier than what we just saw.
Nine Inch Nails video. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it was.
It was really crappily done. I think the best thing you could have done is just had like half-second clips and maybe show like 8 or 10 things that were disturbing. But I don't know if you could have got, I think Carpenter said on the making of that you can only get away with so much showing what disturbing was. And I don't even think, matter of fact, I don't even think you had to show any of it.
That's the big problem trying to do a story like this is that your imagination cannot compete.
Yeah, they could have even talked about certain things in the film. And normally I'm like, show me, don't tell me.
Now that you gave away the whole thing, the angel, I thought they revealed that way too early.
Yeah.
That this was his trophy. This is like his proof that this film exists. And it's like, okay, well, what's the big deal now?
You could have just shown how disturbed this guy was that he had basically an angel in his trophy room with the wings ripped off, still alive, and the portrayal of the angel was very creepy, very creepy. The makeup and the actor and whoever it was, very creepy. That I thought, wow, if this guy's got a caged angel in his house, this thing is really going to get fucked up towards the end. It's like, oh, you brought the angel back.
You know, and also you didn't have to. I mean, you could have shown the angel, but you don't have to actually see it. You could have just seen it lurking in the shadows. You know, maybe is this really an angel?
This is also really similar to that Johnny Depp film directed by Roman Polanski.
The Ninth Gate. Very similar.
It's very similar to that too, and that film has a similar problem. It's this intriguing story, but the ending, the resolution, cannot live up to whatever you've built it up to be.
So I guess we could all agree it's too derivative of other films. I mean, like I said, this to me is in Mouth of Madness.
I give you that.
I just don't think the payoff was enough. I was
entertained.
I think it was one of the Masters of Horror that I like the most, but it could have been so much more, and the payoff was just very, very weak. Very, very weak. You could have done a lot more, and I don't know.
Well, we can also mention John Carpenter, who was also one of the rare directors who actually returned for the second season of Masters of Horror with an episode called Pro-Life, written by the same team. Which hopefully maybe we'll talk about in the near future. But as a Carpenter film, it's a very big disappointment after a 5-year layoff. Definitely not one of my favorites of the season. It wasn't bad, but as a Carpenter film, very, very disappointing. I guess could you guys agree?
For some reason, I thought it was one of the more memorable episodes of the season. It's not. I'm not full. I've been leveling a lot of criticisms against it, but actually, I probably enjoyed it more than others.
At least
I'm kind of in Mike's.
At least it tried. At least it tried to flesh out some pretty interesting ideas. I mean, one of these things where there was a lot of things within the show that was derivative, but at least it tried fleshing out some interesting ideas. I mean, I've never seen an angel in any other movie with its wings ripped off and as a prisoner. I thought that was kind of cool.
They could have done a lot more with it. We'll say that. All right, well, let's go on to the next film, which will be Larry Cohen's long-awaited return to directing, which is the Pickup, which was written by David J. Schrow, who is an infamous horror writer who wrote the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel to the remake to the sequel. What is it? The sequel. What is it? What is the sequel? The beginning. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. He also wrote Leatherface Part 3, and he also was a columnist for Fangoria for many, many years. This one actually has many, many clever ideas and some excellent dialogue and an excellent performance by Michael Moriarty. Unfortunately, it really fails to fulfill its potential.
It doesn't take its story idea and do what you want to see.
Exactly.
It has a great idea.
That's wonderful. I thought it was one of the best ideas in the series.
They do something entirely different. And I think I don't know if Michael Moriarty's performance was brilliant, but it was definitally interesting.
I don't say it's brilliant. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Michael Moriarty, man. I don't know.
He's a weird
what
bird.
fucking song he birthed from, but that dude, man, is just
I want to share a bomb with him.
Actor, but he's entertaining. He's very watchable. Everything else was like that other serial killer character.
Terrible.
It was so uninteresting.
He's like basically a leftover from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This guy, like Viggo Mortensen.
He was like the kind of guy you would cast in like '80s sex comedies. It was like what's he doing being cast as a serial killer? And it had this great. I mean, the story is basically you have two urban legends. You have the guy who drives in a car, van.
The trucker that kills hitchhikers, and then the hitchhiker that kills truckers.
And you think the story is going to be what happens if one killer picks up the other killer, and they duke it out who's going to win. That's not what happens in this.
But I never get that feeling until the very end.
It doesn't. I mean,
the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like at the end. It's like you don't even understand the relationship.
To add this third character, who I guess is supposed to be a character the audience is supposed to relate to, and just follow her around. Fairuza Balk. And it's like it's totally unnecessary. They could have had a great. I mean, some of the best episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, like the classic ones, were just very simple ideas like this killer from this angle, this killer from this other angle, meet what happens. It could have just been that. And for some reason, they did all this other stuff and this other story, and they only get to that to the very end, and that's it. I don't want to say.
Well, I'll just say it has some great lines in there. It's like where Fairuza Balk, where Michael Moriarty's coming to her, goes, "I got a knife." He goes, "Well, I got a gun, and I guess I win." I mean, that's some really clever dialogue in here. I mean, the problem is like you said, it fails to explain who these two characters are. Like at the end of the movie, I didn't understand what they were doing until that one scene in the truck, that they were competing against each other. I thought they were working together, actually. And that was my biggest problem with the film.
I will say, though, it did seem to have bigger production values than some of the other episodes. Like, all of a sudden, the truck acts and all that stuff, like, well, that's a pretty expensive-looking stunt there. And that's, you know.
I liked the pickup quite a bit. I like them killing the bus passengers at the beginning. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I like everything with Fairuza Balk in the hotel room or the motel room, and then having the killers between her and one killer in the room and the other killer kind of like searching on the outside, figuring out how to get to her and everything, almost like you're dangling a piece of meat in front of two tigers. And I like that little twisty, tongue-in-cheek ending.
That's a great ending.
Yeah, I thought the ending was a lot of fun. And yeah, I expected more of a battle of the wills, you know, kind of a psych-out mind game. I think you would see something like that. It would be more effective in a feature format. You could definitely take that idea and turn it into an hour-and-a-half to a 2-hour film. I don't know if you're allowed something like that kind of the mental chess game within an hour. You could have.
They used to do stuff like that on Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
But no, you could have. You could have, but you probably would have cut out a nice chunk of that beginning with them dealing with the bus passengers and the hitchhikers, and Moriarty like picking up that blonde and her flirting with it. Next thing you know, she's dead. And like you said before, Michael Moriarty is. I'm not sure what his real voice is. I mean, I think. He talks kind of like this.
I'm from all 5 boroughs. That's what he said. I grew up in all 5 boroughs.
He's a New Yorker. Right?
That's what he said. I grew up in all 5 boroughs. And I was like, okay. But he's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he needs more work. He is
True.
He's like, you know, he's like the poor man's Christopher Walken. That's what Michael Moriarty is.
Well, Larry Cohen uses him all the time. I mean, Larry Cohen has used him better than anybody. I mean, and it's sad because the movies he makes are not the greatest, but he is so excellent in all the films that he's in with Larry Cohen.
Once again,
Q, he's wonderful.
Q the Winged Serpent.
He's
like,
awesome.
It's like this John Cassavetes character.
It's wonderful.
In his weird schlocky horror
And then he's
film.
in The Stuff as Mo, and he goes, you can call me like Mo Money. I mean, he's a redneck.
Yeah,
I love
in
it.
the making of the pickup, you get to see Larry Cohen and Michael Moriarty like flirt in their gay voices. And that's like worth buying the DVD alone to watch these two men flirt back and forth.
Well, I love that. I do love Larry Cohen. In fact, he's made some of my favorite, B movies of his time. Q, The Winged Serpent is amazing. Go out and see
God
it.
Told Me To.
God Told Me To is a classic. Go out and see it. In fact, if you see it, it has a lot of similarities to The X-Files. And excellent performances by Tony LoBianco. Anyway, let's go on to... Jeff, I'm sorry. You have anything you want to add?
Well, no, because
No, I don't wanna
everybody
pick up
said
the-
everything I liked about it, especially the ending.
I didn't blow it. I just said I liked it.
But you mentioned that was going to be my piece.
Well, say it.
No, I'm not going to mention the ending, but I really enjoyed the twist. I enjoyed the episode. I can see it from both of your points of view, but I just found the episode very entertaining. I guess I didn't think that deeply while I was watching it, but I enjoy it, and anytime Michael Moriarty is on screen is a joy.
He is a good actor, and he's really underrated. I mean, it's time he needs to come back. I miss him. I heard he's living in Canada.
He was the star of
Law and Order.
Law and Order for a while.
He got into a fight with Janet Reno and resigns. Too bad. Too bad. Well, is that one of your favorite episodes of the season, James?
It's one of my favorites, yes. It's not my favorite, but one of my favorites.
Yeah, one of my favorites too.
All right, well, let me get on to the next one, which is an episode from my favorite director of all time, and he's influenced me quite a bit, and I love his films. I mean, unfortunately, I think he hasn't directed a real classic in a long time, but the filmmaker is Dario Argento, and the show is Jennifer, which was written by and starring Steven Weber, based on an old creepy comic story. Unfortunately, the problem with this one to me is the scripting, and it really does suffer because it's. I ask you to tell a story on this one, Eric, because it's really hard for me to describe this one.
Well, how about Jeff?
Well, Jeff, why don't you describe it?
Okay, Jennifer
idea.
is the story of, was he a cop?
Yes, he was a cop.
Yeah, and he comes across a man about to kill a woman, and he saves the woman by killing the guy, and then he sees that the woman is disfigured, and she's very disfigured, ugly disfigured, and he decides to take sympathy and take her in, and slowly but surely he starts to fall in love or more lust with this Jennifer character, so much that his wife leaves him and his kid leaves him. And really, that's as much as I'm going to go into it, because while I like the direction of the story, the main problem here is Steven Weber, his scripting and his acting.
I agree with you.
He's never been an actor I've enjoyed. I mean, I haven't watched many of his TV works.
Come on, let's be honest. Steven Weber's not a good actor.
He wasn't bad in this. The problem is
He's
really
adequate,
the problem is the script for me. And then the thing is, he's under her control, because it's scene where he's scratched, and so like he's like basically willed to her is how I got it.
Interesting.
The problem is
I didn't pick that up.
well, it was he got scratched, and it got bigger and bigger, and like I feel that he got infected.
It was like venom or something.
Yeah, and I feel like that's why he was obsessed with her, because I mean, this woman is really disfigured with a mouth that's like this and really big bug eyes.
Well, I got it disfigured
more
like an
like-
accident, more like a birth defect. Like she's a monster though.
Yeah,
she's a monster.
She actually like eats cats and kills people.
and eats people. She eats children.
And he still is obsessed with her.
That was one of the more disturbing scenes, which strangely enough I liked about it was towards the end when she kills the child. I thought, whoa, it went there. That was really the only thing I can say that really, I would say, woke me out of my slumber watching this, because I was just.
I thought it was well directed though.
It was well directed, but I just didn't feel anything as I was watching. It was like things happened, but it was like, oh, okay.
That's what upset me is that you see Steven Weber, right? You don't really see him change into this character that would become obsessed with this woman. He just like leaves his wife and everything for this woman.
He
All of a
becomes
sudden,
more like a sad sack.
he just becomes obsessed with her. And it's just like you don't see that transition. It's like, what made him finally start to feel this way? It just happens, and it's too abrupt for me to accept that.
Agree.
And I really thought that it was very interesting too how they make this woman like so god ugly, but yet that she has the perfect body, and that they have like this really intense sexual relationship, and he can't control himself. And I like the idea where this has happened before. It's going to keep happening and happening. She's going to keep going from guy to guy, basically. Use him up and get him killed. But they needed to give more hint too of her character, what she was. I mean, it's just just comes out of the blue from nowhere, and you don't understand what she is.
Well, it's very true to the original Creepy story. Very, because I remember reading that as a kid. Very true. Yeah, but part of it, I think part of the story works in a way. I'd love to know what the origin of Jennifer is. I mean, you could make a case that she's like a succubus, like this demon that comes in and seduces men for purposes of feeding whatever desire she has, whether it's for human flesh or for the attention that men give her. That's what I kind of guessed that she was. She wasn't just some retarded baby that was found in the backwoods. I mean, this is truly a monster.
I didn't have any problems with the story itself. I mean, there's only so much you can do with an hour format. I mean, it was pretty easy to follow. It was pretty easy to understand that it was one of those
not vague,
loathe but lust kind of things, obsession things. I would say that, yeah, Steven Weber was a big problem for me in it. And also, Argento does these things that he does in all of his movies, which I'm just frankly finding annoying now. The whole little girl singing, going la 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 la, as a soundtrack. Like, is that supposed to be creepy? Because it's not. It's fucking annoying.
I can agree with you on that. I love Argento, and I told you he's my favorite director. Unfortunately, he hasn't directed anything I've liked in a very long time. However, the work that he has done in the past is so good that I'll always respect him as a master.
He's done visually. He's done some amazing things.
He's done Deep Red.
Say what you will about
Suspiria.
the logic of his storytelling. I mean, Superior has some pop art moments.
Suspiria is a mess. That is a mess of a movie.
But it has
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
visual moments that are pure pop art.
I don't know what the hell's going on in there.
And I respect his place in the history of horror filmmaking.
I was glad he was able to come to America and make something more. I mean, I know he's made another episode, which we'll get into hopefully in another show. He did another episode called Pelts, which is on the second season with Meatloaf.
That's actually not bad. That's not bad. I think Jennifer might be better, but it's not bad.
What was your main problem with Jennifer for you? Was there anything you had a problem with really?
Steven Weber.
Steven Weber.
That's about it.
That's the general consensus of the episode.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeff? Did you have a problem with any of the origins of the story or the?
No, just like I said, maybe the script and Steven Weber.
Wow, I'm surprised to hear everyone. I didn't think he was that bad, actually. But like I said, the problem for me was just the gradual transition of this character. I mean, it's just too abrupt, where he just gives up his entire family. You know, there's a scene like where his Jennifer actually attacks his wife, and he just, you know, she leaves. She goes like, either her or me. And
Well, I kind of just interpret it as he feels responsible for her, and he can't
Yeah.
just get rid of her.
It's
He
like a
can't-
father. It's like a perverted fatherly
Yeah.
thing. Like he's
I didn't think it was
Jennifer's
that hard, though.
rescuer, but then all of a sudden he feels lust towards her, and it's just I don't know.
Well, it was a sick story, but okay. So of all the three that we reviewed today, what would be your favorite? Would it be the Pickup, or Cigarette Burns, or Jennifer?
They're all pretty close, actually. I would say maybe the Pickout is slight. Well, I don't know. Cigarette Burns is. I don't know, but I think I enjoyed them all. I don't know if I could say a favorite. I'd say maybe Cigarette Burns narrowly, but Pickup, like I said, I enjoyed all three.
I would say the Pickup.
Pickup.
I would say Pickup, Cigarette Burns, kind of like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn in between, because to me they're all equal, because they all have their own problems. There hasn't been a Masters of Horror that I've seen yet where I felt, wow, this is good from beginning to end. They all have their flaws, and it's very sad too, because it has potential to show, but it really fails. I mean, have you guys seen one episode that's really good from beginning to end, where you're like,
Yeah,
wow?
I mentioned it last episode, Dreams of the Witch House. I thought that was the best one. I enjoyed that one. I didn't find really any flaws with that. I liked that. It was true to H.P. Lovecraft's vision, and it was true to the style of Stuart Gordon.
What about you, Jeff?
Well, one episode, which is probably my favorite from the first season, I can't say everything worked in it, but I enjoyed the episode Deer Woman quite a lot, and it shocked me because I didn't expect that much from it. But I ended up loving it, but I'm not going to say it was perfect from beginning to end, but it was as perfect as probably I had seen of that season.
What about you,
I like the Miike one.
the Miike one?
Yeah, I just thought it was really I thought it was outstandingly.
Because you have a
artistic.
fetish of shoving needles into the
I
gums of
do,
young
and
ladies.
you know that very well, sweetheart.
Yeah. All of a sudden, we're Larry Cohen and Michael Moriarty here. Oh, darling.
I just thought that he really pushed it creatively. I mean, artistically, I thought it was a success.
I think we're
It's
getting ready to
flawed
leave.
In other ways.
Yeah, we're just about
See
done.
you
No, they
next
just
week.
roll the credits.
Oh,
Yeah, see you next week.
oh, we're done. We're done.
Oh, we're done.
We're done. Okay, good. Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
we'll see you next week.
Oh, good. I need another credits roll.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, I better tell you.
Okay, good.
That's probably like the most quiet house.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been away from the Hollywood
He's
establishment.
basically been sitting on his butt and accepting money for being an executive producer for them remaking all his other films.
Yeah, they remade the
The
Fog and now,
Assault on Precinct 13.
and unfortunately, sorry, don't say it, Escape from New York with Gerald Butler, which
Gerard, and it might not get made.
let's hope not, because the original's perfect. Don't, and it's already been remade, of course, is Escape from L.A. But anyway, let's get into this one. Cigarette Burns was written by Drew McWeeny, which, oh boy, co-written, and who is also known as Moriarty on Ain't It Cool News. And if you ask me, he should actually keep his name as Moriarty, because I would change my name if it was McWeeny. But this is a film, of course, that also, believe it or not, also has a lot of Argento references in it, ironically, and where it's to the point where it's a fan of a fan writing work and putting in these references. Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson. Welcome to the Cinefiles. Today we're going to be continuing our conversation from last week of the Masters of Horror Season 1, Part 2. And we're going to be discussing 3 films or shows from the Masters of Horror, which will be John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns, Dario Argento's...
It's got a very interesting idea behind it. You know, it may not be terribly original, but it is interesting. It's just a problem with stories like this. It's like, you know, the story is that eventually once they get to the end of the story, you know, when all is revealed, it's really hard to come up with something that can fulfill the promise of whatever
Thank
this
you.
horrible thing is.
That was my
Yep.
problem.
And they didn't quite get there. You know, there are good things in the story. There are things about that I did like, you know, and I liked how it had a very sort of there were moments of it that were very naturalistic instead of going like the whole abstract kind of, you know, out there route. But yeah, it was kind of you know, I liked it. I wasn't crazy about it. I liked the idea of it more than I actually liked the execution.
My problem with this one is it Argento, as everyone, I mean, I'm sorry, not says, which are becoming very distracting, I think. You know, of course, like the movie they're showing is Profondo Rosso, which everyone knows is Dario Argento's Deep Red, and, you know, all the film jargon and all the little hints. But why don't you, Eric, give us a little rundown of the story?
This guy, he runs a sort of an art house movie theater. He's also sort of makes his money finding rare films for collectors, and some guy approaches him and says, there's this famous movie, there's a legend, we don't even know if it really exists, but I think it does, and it was only shown once, and the people who went to this one showing went insane after seeing it. It's got to be out there somewhere, and basically it's very similar to Ring.
And it's also very similar to a movie that John Carpenter earlier directed called In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, actually it is similar to that. It's I don't know what to say about this one.
Jennifer and Larry Cohen's The Pickup. And let me introduce our panel before we begin. To my left, Eric Cohen. To his left, Jeff Gallisaw. And to his left, Michael Foltz.
We're kind of the masters of horror.
Well, hey, I guess you could say I'm a master of horror.
Master of horror reviews.
Well, I'll take that, because you know me, I love horror. And in fact, we're going to be discussing two of my favorite directors, actually my two favorite directors today on this show. And it's going to be hard to discuss this because I have some mixed opinions about their work. And my two favorite directors, respectively, are Dario Argento, and John Carpenter. And this is their long-awaited return to work. In fact, we'll start off with Cigarette Burns, which is John Carpenter's first work since Ghost of Mars, if I'm not mistaken, which was quite a while ago, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. He hasn't directed a theatrical film in quite a while.
Was Vampires before?
Vampires was before Ghost